happened in the 90s.
Matt was the fat kid, Steve was the black kid. Life wasn't always great, but you know what was? The 90s. Happened in the 90s. Yeah!
Moving fast, hitting the street, boiling hot, feeling the heat. Throat is parched, ready to burst. Ruby red, squirt your thirst.
Here's the coolest thing you can do when you're hot.
Squirt your thirst.
Drink Ruby Red Squirt, a citrus berry blast.
Squirt your thirst.
Yeah, man. I wanted to put this out here, like, and it probably doesn't matter, but you know, we did this Howard Stern Pee Wee's Play with Yourself House episode, and then about a week, less than a week later, Paul Rubens passes away, and that's a coincidence because we're both fans of Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, Pee Wee's Playhouse, and I wanted to call attention to that, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Bad
yeah, like
timing. But how are we gonna know? It was untimely. Like we didn't know. I don't think it was widely known he had cancer. But rest in peace, dude. Paul Rubens overcame all that craziness with the Pee Wee scandal, and I like he was in Blow, if I'm not mistaken, but he was in a lot of like cool dramatic movies where he just played. He always stood out as like a great actor in those too. But you know, Pee Wee's Playhouse, Steve.
Pee Wee's Playhouse is forever going to be gangster, man. You know, he was in Blow, he was in Batman Returns. A lot of people like miss
Very
that.
short though. I mean, it's
Very
right at
short.
the beginning. If you blink, you miss it.
But the fact that he was in it, that's awesome enough. He was in Mystery Man, Mystery Men.
Yeah, he was fun
Yeah.
in that too, for sure. I'm just trying to remember because he did have a lot of good roles. Blow just stands out because that was like a collegiate favorite, you know.
Hmm.
Real feel good movie about cocaine for about 2/3 of it till it goes to shit. But yeah, dude, Paul Rubens, that did suck because it literally, I think the announcement of his death happened like the day before we released the episode. And I was like, or maybe while I was editing it, but I was like,
Yeah.
just, you know, it was inadvertent. But we have to
It-
call attention to a great episode of television, you know. I mean, Howard Stern just if even if it wasn't that great technically, just the madness that we got to witness in that was fantastic.
yeah, and also Paul Rubens was in the Groundlings group, man, with Phil Hartman. That's how they knew each other. Phil Hartman, I believe he was what was he the king of cartoons? No, he wasn't the king of cartoons. That was an older guy, older
Yeah,
black guy.
yeah. But dude, even the
But
Pee Wee movies, man, like those were a big part of my
yeah.
childhood because I don't remember what channel it was, but Pee Wee's Big Adventure, you know, as a kid, I don't know how I saw it at first, but I used to love that movie, dude. And it's so wacky and fun, and I don't know how that character came about. I don't really know the backstory specifically, but it was like it was huge. And like as a kid in the '90s, they played it a lot, and I fucking loved that shit.
Well, he debuted it in the Groundlings during one of their performances, and he used money from his parents. His parents helped fund this production that he was going to put on, and he springboarded that from doing this in the Groundlings, experimenting with it, into making it its own production, its own play, and it took off. It became a thing on HBO. HBO picked it up early in the 80s, and it's much more adult than what we were used to seeing on Saturday mornings, man. And there's a meme that was floating around, and it would have like Mr. Rogers, Bob Ross, and like LeVar Burton, and like these were all the people who like taught us as kids like certain things were cool. Like, you know, Pee Wee Herman needs to be added to that meme because Bob Ross taught us that art was cool. LeVar Burton taught us that reading is cool. Mr. Rogers taught us that being kind is cool. Pee Wee was the guy that taught us being unique is cool. It's okay to be different. He taught us as a kid, and this is a big-eared kid from Midwest America, and you know I embraced that fully, man. I ate up that Pee Wee bag every Saturday morning. I actually had the talking couch. I had the little zombie toy. You could open up the doors, and it had a little genie head, man.
Oh
So I
yeah.
was definitely, yeah, I was a Pee Wee fanatic. R.I.P. to Paul Rubens.
Yeah, man. He was a big part of both of our childhoods, and it just sucks. So yeah, bad timing on our part, but rest in peace, man. Pee Wee, we love you. Paul Rubens, you're a beast. In more lighter news, Steve, related to the '90s, I've been kind of dreading it, but I went to see the new Ninja Turtles movie, Mutant Mayhem or whatever it's called. And I gotta say, as a super fan of the original trilogy, I guess, but mostly the main two. Other than the first two live action movies, this is the best Ninja Turtles movie that I've ever seen. It was really
I
good.
knew it.
It
I
was
knew it.
fun. And they did like a new take on it. It's not, if you're tied to like the mythology, you might be a little pissed off as an adult, which it's a kids movie. You shouldn't do that. But um, everything was awesome. Like the turtles were cool. All of the mutants that they had, including the villain of the movie, who's played by Ice Cube. They used '90s music. They use '90s rap. I mean, Ice Cube's in there calling people punks and like, "I'm gonna whoop your," in Ice Cube voice. It's amazing.
Did you
Uh,
get a yay yay?
not you don't get that, but you get him calling people punks and shit. It sounds great, and you get a lot of like I said, they use a lot of '90s hip hop, and we even get a very brief but very obvious callback to the Vanilla Ice Ninja rap because you hear that quickly, and I was like, fuck yeah! So like as an adult going to that, uh, it's only an hour and a half, which is fantastic. Like it's a nice length of a time for a movie, and the animation's really cool, and they set it up for like I'm definitely looking forward to the next one because they set it up good too. So like, congratulations to Seth Rogen, he did it. Where Michael Bay
I
failed, I guess he succeeded.
had a feeling he'd knock it out the park, man.
Yeah, dude, and shout out to Paul Rudd because he plays a character in it that steals it like I was on edibles, so like take this for whatever you want, but me and Kendra were both laughing our ass off, and Paul Rudd plays a funny ass character in it. There's a lot of comedy in it. It's great.
Now you know you got to watch White Man Can't Jump.
I'm gonna do it, Steve. I'm going
Got
to at some point.
Mutant Mayhem. It got your feet wet. Let's get deeper into the pool. It's okay. Some of the remakes are
I'm
okay, man.
scared, Steve. I'm scared.
I'm gonna push your ass. Just get your ass in there.
Zima Gold.
Well, hey, boys and girls, this is Steve G and Matt G with Happened in the 90s, a show where we talk about what happened in the 90s. So get out your invisible ink pens and your Meteor Man posters, because you're a vibrant thing, a vibrant thing, a vibrant thing. Bounce, 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 bounce.
Nice. Shout out Q-Tip. Ouch.
Another 90s legend.
Hell yeah.
Well, today, my friend, we're talking about all things August 10th. In the 90s. Starting off in 1990, Ren and Stimpy premieres. Big House Blues is the name of the pilot. Ren and Stimpy on the street starving are captured by the dog catcher. They end up in the pound and become frightened when one of the dogs tells them of the big sleep.
Terrifying. But this is it, Steve. This is where it all started for Ren and Stimpy. This is the thing. This is the short that started it all. So I didn't know that, but I remembered this. This is like the one. I think if you remember Ren and Stimpy, this is one of the main ones you remember.
Vaguely. And they wouldn't even premiere on Nickelodeon until probably, I think, a year later. But this was released theatrically along with Kindergarten Cop when it was in theaters, man. And that's something I missed because I didn't watch Kindergarten Cop until it was on VHS.
I didn't remember. I mean, I definitely saw Kindergarten Cop in the theater, but I don't remember that. But yeah, when I read about like the backstory of this, it was crazy because it was just like created as a short, and even in making this, like there's a lot of like discussion about how this show was made in the '90s and like the creator of like the actual show and like how hard it was, but like they wanted this to be 6 minutes. It had to be 8, so they overcame that. But it just got picked up. I think this was like the second segment on the actual first Nickelodeon show. But I don't know. Ren and Stimpy, I was talking about this with Kendra. Like, it was a show that going back, like, I was like a nice boy, and my mom would like limit what I could see. But when she saw this, she had a reaction where she was like, "You can't watch this show. It's disgusting." So I had to like sneak around and watch Ren and Stimpy for a while. And I mean, for a while, I would say this was my favorite cartoon. It's not now, but man, it's so gross, disgusting. This one's not all that, but it's still crazy as fuck, you know?
And it has John K written all over it, man. From what we know now, it's pretty ridiculous. Like I couldn't believe that this got greenlit for a Nickelodeon show. It's a great show. It's one of my favorite like 90s cartoons of all
Yeah.
time. But I just can't believe, especially in the early 90s, that they were able to get away with some of the things they did. Like there was no comparison animation style. I think the closest thing to it was Ralph Bakshi. And Ralph Bakshi, he actually had a Mighty Mouse remake in the 90s that got scrapped quick because it had racy animation.
People were trying, like, this is on the same level of, like, to me, like a Beavis and Butthead, which nobody would say should be on, like, a Nickelodeon, you know?
For sure.
They didn't
Exactly.
curse, but it was like gross in a weird way. It was just like how it was done. You know, they had, even in this, we'll get to it. But yeah, there's like, I guess I was reading some trivia that I thought was cool, that like some of the initial pencil tests of like this show and like the short, it was supposed to look much more like a Hanna-Barbera show. Which I thought was like kind of weird to think about, like if they did make it look like one of those old school cartoons. But if you look in the back, I guess, of the pound, maybe I'm like, spoiler alert, but if you look in the back of the pound they're at one point they like pan over to a bunch of dogs that are in cages. And I guess if you look close, they're supposed to look like Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters. I guess Fred Flintstone's in the background, George Jetson and Huckleberry Hound are like in the jail cell with Ren and Stimpy. So I just thought how cool
Wow.
that would have been and how much different it was. That might have been more palatable. This, they obviously nailed it and knocked it out of the park for what they were trying to do, but it's funny. And it starts off very it's the style. It has the weirdness right immediately because they're hungry, Steve. Ren and Stimpy starving.
And we get the origin story. We get a Sam Elliott like narration. Believe it or not, I've been known to lie. And then he talks about how cats and dogs are natural enemies. However, this cat and dog, they unite in the face of adversity. And they have this creepy old man character. I think his name is Old Man Munger, and he's eating away at their bellies. And it leads to them being starving. And they're eating up all the bird feed. And Old Man Pigeon, he can't let you take his food. So he just pecks the fuck out of them.
Open your
Eventually,
mouth, bitch.
yeah, those pebbles.
Also, just shout out to the guy who's biting their stomachs. I think that's the same guy from the band episode where they have to go skinny dipping and skinny slapping, and they do everything naked, if I remember right.
It's a lot of
So,
recycled characters.
but yeah, I mean, they're on the brink of starvation, Steve, but as it happens in some lucky people's lives, the sun shines on them and they get taken away in this magical vehicle that I guess is a pound vehicle, Steve. But three hots and a cot. What more could these guys want, you know?
Yeah, I mean it's similar to jail, like because you got some lifers in there. They look comfortable, and they're trying to like let them guys like loosen up, man. It's not that bad, like you said. That you get three hots and a cot. You know, they take care of you, man. You ain't got to fend for your meals now.
Yeah, we're not getting run over by cars. We're not getting attacked by gigantic pigeons that are taking the food out of your mouth. It's all good. And Ren and Stimpy are pretty happy about it. And I do have to just say, like, just as like a 2-character show, Stimpy has like one line in this. I don't even know if you hear him talk. It's the Ren show, basically.
He hasn't been fully characterized, I don't think, at this point.
Yeah. Well, Ren, he's enjoying himself. He just got a big old bowl of dog food or whatever the fuck they give him. And he's just looking for a place to go. And as he's like looking around, one of the dogs gets taken away. Phil, I believe his name is. And he looks over at another guy and he's like, where's Phil going? And the guy's like, oh, Phil's going to sleep. And Ren's like, shit. I think I need to get a couple hours myself. So he packs up and goes to sleep. Comes up the next day and he's like, hey man, where the fuck is Phil at, dude? Is he still sleeping?
He's like, you don't wake up from the big sleep. Oh, okay, the big sleep. The big sleep.
He puts it together like that guy at the end of Usual Suspects. He's like, wait, what? Oh shit. We're fucked, Stimpy. We got to get out of here. Stimpy, as like the intensity's ramping up, he's horking a lot. And he horks up like a bunch of fur balls onto Ren, which, you know, he doesn't like that. So he starts slapping them around. But as that's happening, this little girl comes into the pound and is like, oh my God, I want that cute poodle over there. Because he kind of looks like a poodle. A fucked up poodle, but he kind of has that look, Steve.
Poodle on crack, yeah. And it ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. It's like, well, shit, I can't just have a home with my cohort here. Stimpy, if you're gonna take me, you got to take the other.
I mean, he's giving it to him at first, though. He's like, ha ha, bye. But Ren's a nice guy inside, Steve. Even though he doesn't like to show it too much, he does have to go back for the homie. And the chick's really into it. So luck happens there, too. They go home. And, I mean, one of the few, of episodes of Ren and Stimpy that just gives you a nice happy ending, Steve, because they just get a nice home. And I love that.
Yeah. It's all downhill from here. You get it served its purpose. The pilot, it's like, hey, this is character stabilization. We're trying to establish these characters, and here they are now. This is how this shit starts. And we get a nice taste and feel of the Ren and Stimpy show. You know, there's crude animations like the close-up of Stimpy's eye boogers when he's asleep. And it's just like at this point in time, you never see that in a child's cartoon. The little sketching of vomit outlining the toilet.
Yeah.
As Ren is approaching the toilet, you see the vomit or residue of puke. Little shit like that, man. It adds up.
Oh yeah, and I even forgot to say that at one point when they're like going to sleep in the pound, Ren does wake up the next day. And he's like in the midst of like, I guess, a sexual dream or something. And he just lays a nice big old smooch on Stimpy, you know, and that's kind of weird.
Yeah, they touch on,
you know,
and they have some Ace and Gary moments throughout the series. And that's the first example of that. And I think that's what made parents say like, no, my kid can't watch this. Are they supposed to be two boy pets or is one a girl, is one a boy? No, I don't even feel like trying to decipher that out. No,
we're not having that talk. I don't want to have that talk. So one other thing, Steve, that just always I heard them say something, right? What is Ren? I know he's something Chihuahua. I didn't know he is an asthma, like the affliction hound Chihuahua. I thought that was just weird that they called him that, but it's like one of those songs where you think you're saying the right lyric, but you're not. I never clocked that. I just thought that was weird. So sidetrack Sally. Sorry. So sorry.
The more you know. I actually had a Ren retake of an Eminem song. And I mean, the Eminem song, I don't think, it didn't come out in the 90s. But anyways, I sit back with this pack of zigzag and his back and his weed. It gets me. It should eat the pee. The most meanest MC. I hope the mic clocked that.
It was good. I got it. It's clear. And that's pretty good. I mean, if we can get like an AI to create Ren just doing that, you were doing some animation already. Get on that, Steve. We're turning that around. That's the project.
And since birth, I've been cursing because cursing just. Also in 1990, Air America premieres. A young pilot finds himself recruited unwittingly into a covert and corrupt CIA airlift operation in Laos during the Vietnam conflict. Directed by Roger Spottiswoode, starring racist-ass Melly Gibson, Robert Downey Jr., Nancy Travis, David Marshall Grant, Lane Smith, and Art LaFleur.
I remember this, but I think I always confuse this with Operation Dumbo Drop. So they're both not good. But this, I remember seeing this, but I didn't remember Downey was in this. And Downey's looking crazy. He's got a nice little blowout right there. He's looking young and ready to go.
Yeah, speaking of blow, I'm sure he was on a ton of it, and he doesn't remember this either. The only reason he picked this up is because of the big paycheck, and he wanted to work with racist ass Melly Gibson. He had just seen Lethal Weapon 2, and he's like, man, I like this guy and his mullet. So it's funny you confuse that with dropping off an elephant, dropping off kilos of cocaine. I love it. It's kind of like my slip up with paddles and pedos. Huh.
Hey, dude, Operation, that could be a Coke terminology thing. Operation Dumbo. They're just dumping an elephant load of blow into Laos, dude. Okay?
Yeah, I watched this on the internet dark roads, and I'm not even going to say it's worth watching once, man. I pushed play, and I started doing errands.
That's how I feel you, Steve. But it doesn't. I think I've seen like bits and pieces of this on TV and shit. And this is just one of those '90s like dumbass fucking. Mel Gibson was throwing out a lot of trash back then. It's crazy they got Downey, but I guess this is when he was in like waking up in houses phase of his life, all fucked up.
Yeah. Where am I?
This is my house, man. No, it's not. It's my house. I'll just buy it. Whatever.
So I wanted to say, after the Paul Rubens thing, I started thinking like, man, this has happened to us before, where we've talked about a celebrity and then probably less than a week later, oh shit. So watching this, it reminded me, this happened with Art LaFleur, Babe Ruth from Sandlot. We were talking about that god-awful Pauly Shore movie in the Army now. I think it was last summer, summer before.
Steve, don't say that. Don't say that.
No. Shout out to Art LaFleur. He actually came to Bowling Green and gave a speech to the students one time. He didn't have to do it, but, because of the goodness in his heart, he wanted to talk to those kids in Northwest America.
Legends never die, Steve.
Dreams never do die. Shout out to Art LaFleur. But yeah, and I feel like this has happened again with another person, but I digress. In 1990 also, Flatliners premieres. 5 medical students experiment with near-death experiences until the dark consequences of past tragedies begin to jeopardize their lives. Directed by Joel Schumacher, starring Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Bacon, Julia Roberts, William Baldwin, Oliver Platt, and Kimberly Scott.
Yeah, they basically kill themselves and then bring themselves back. And they're like, oh, I've been flatlined.
Yeah, when we were college students, we were just passing around whippets and almost dying. They went full throttle.
Yeah, dude. Hey, man, that's just a party. These guys were doing like medical shit to get themselves within an inch of their death. And then they come back and they're like, I saw my dad. Some shit like that, I think, if I remember correctly.
But at least they had an end goal to theirs, because like, hey man, if this is success, we could end up on 60 Minutes. We were just passing around computer duster. We had no end game.
Man.
We were just freestyling with life, just like, oh man, let's see how you could sound.
Oh sure, yeah. Jordan nearly lost his life. Yeah, that wasn't a great, decision necessarily, but there wasn't a lot of that happening at all in our group. So we could have flatlined. I guess technically we did flatline, Steve. I didn't see anything cool though. I just, felt shitty the next day.
We weren't hanging out with pre-med students for one.
Yeah. I didn't remember you said Julia Roberts, right?
Yes, that Julia Roberts.
I forgot she was in this shit because I definitely have seen this one, but I didn't remember she was in it.
This got some hitters, man. This guy Kevin Bacon, and this is Kevin Bacon at his peak, in my opinion. That mid 80s, the early 90s, when he still got the Uncle Jesse shit. Yeah, I got a whole game named after me, bitch. And all of y'all are closer, deeper into the abyss. Yeah, Oliver Platt and Julia. Yeah, you're only one name away now. You're welcome.
Yeah, but he was going up against Kiefer Sutherland, Steven. A Kiefer, though. He's
Kiefer
looking
also
80s down, too. He's looking Lost Boys out.
fresh off the Lost Boys lot. And this is where him and Julia Roberts actually hooked up. I didn't even know this. They ended up being
Damn.
engaged. And Roberts ultimately broke it off for Lyle Lovett. If I was
Damn.
Kiefer, I would never live that down. I get it, you're a country music legend and shit, but you look in the
He
mirror,
must
bro.
to be honest with you, Steven, this is a very, say what you will, but I gotta say, if I'm looking at both those guys, right? Kiefer back in the day, Kiefer at his height of his beauty, right? Before all the fucked up shit, he's looking good. And then Lyle Lovett, I'm saying they're both rich, they're both famous. Lyle Lovett must have just had a hammer, Steve. He must have just was packing a wallop that you yeah, exactly. Because
Like
that's
a
the only
pendulum.
explanation. Unless she just loves country music, and that nobody really loves country music,
Unless you're from Kentucky.
No, that's not happening. But damn, that one does hurt. If the
would
Kiefer's
sting.
probably, even with all the success he's had after the fact, he probably looks in the mirror some days and is just like, "Fuck, man, son of a bitch."
I need to do
Wow,
more
love
push-ups.
it.
Like, really though? Bitch, do I gotta pick up a ukulele for y'all?
Damn. And this is like right before Pretty Woman too. It's like, damn, that's
No,
a
this
double.
is after.
Is it?
This is the same year because Pretty Woman, we covered that.
But I
That
bet
was
he
like
didn't know
March.
how famous she was about to pop off though. And then like a couple years after that, when Pretty Woman's out, he's in there tearing his fucking hair out. Like
Really, bitch? I did movies with
listening to Lyle Lovett songs, like hitting a fucking wall, just fucking punching holes in his wall.
bitch, I did movies with both the Corys. Like my daddy is Donald. Does that have any kind of fucking? Does that mean something? Bitch,
I'm
my
a
daddy
Lost
is
Boy,
famous.
bitch. You know
I'm a
what the
Lost
fuck?
Boy.
I know Corey Feldman, bitch.
Jeez.
Wow. Damn. I think yeah, that overshadows Flatliners as a whole right there. Just that's crazy.
You want to play with death, bitch? All right, I'm gonna play. Want to play some death? Also in 1990, The Two Jakes premieres. The sequel to Chinatown in 1974 finds J.J. Gitz investigating adultery and murder and the money that comes from oil. Directed by Jack Nicholson, starring Jack Nicholson, Harvey Keitel, Meg Tilly, Madeline Stowe, Eli Wallach, Reuben Blades, David Keith, and Richard Farnsworth.
I had absolutely no idea that they made a sequel to Chinatown.
Me neither.
Is it as fucked up as the first one?
It's as boring as the first one. I watched both of them over the weekend just to like catch up.
Yeah.
And I just the director of the original, I can't watch it just because it's the same thing. I can't watch Woody Allen movies. Like I can't get over that.
Who is it again?
It's the guy who was married to the Charles Manson chick, and he ended up getting like charged with diddling children, so he fled the country forever.
Oh,
I can't
yeah,
call
yeah.
his name.
Yeah, I can't either right now, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Chinatown was fucking. It was long and boring. It was like I like Jack Nicholson in it. There's like some cool stuff. Actually, I do like that movie, but I could see where you think it's kind of boring. It is, and it's like because like the overall arching like crime in it is like something about water rights. I think if I remember,
In
like
Chinatown,
yeah, it's like something like it's something related to that, and then there's like a weird incest thing going on too. I believe in like the first one.
Faye Dunaway's dad molested her and ended up having a daughter, which eventually was her sister. Had a daughter sister. And I don't know if this was set in West Virginia, but
Yeah,
maybe
what in
it
the
should have
West
been.
Virginia is that? Jesus.
Yeah,
Well,
and
regardless of Chinatown, I had no idea they made a sequel. So bring me up to speed on the sequel. How do we go from the end of that move, Chinatown, to this? What happens?
well, this is years later, and it's 1948, and he's more established in his business. And this time around, it's Harvey Keitel who's a client, and Harvey Keitel basically catches his wife cheating, and he doesn't know what to do about it. Harvey Keitel eventually ends up killing the other guy, and Madeline Stowe plays Harvey Keitel's cheating wife, Meg Tilly, and I always want to say Titty just because it's so close to Meg Titty. I'm just gonna fucking say it. Meg Titty's in it, and she's young, she's sexy, and she's got that raspy kind of this. I love it. It's like a mix of Joey Lauren Adams and Blanche.
Oh, okay. I like
I
that.
love it.
Well, like
Oh,
cigarette smoking Southern Belle. That sounds kind of
mm-hmm,
hot.
mm, yeah, yeah. But there's some spoofs or some spots that are kind of blemishing, man. Like there's a mention of Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Rogers wasn't even doing this thing in 1948. How would you even know? Like little fact check shit like that. There's a mention of television. It's 1948,
Get your fucking facts right. Come on, Jack. Come on, Jack. You directed this fucking thing.
and Harvey Keitel, he eventually ends up offing himself. They give him this like flammable lighter, and he lights a cigarette, and poof. Most of the movie is about Jack Nicholson trying to protect Harvey Keitel because he ends up killing the guy that was sleeping with his wife, and Harvey Keitel was actually fired. They Paramount wanted to fire him for a more bankable star, and Jack Nicholson refused. He said nobody's firing you. So shout
Oh
out to
yeah,
Jack
Jack.
for standing by Harvey, man. Because at this time, Harvey Keitel, he wasn't bankable. You know, he wasn't doing Quentin Tarantino movies yet, man. I think his main claim to fame was probably Taxi Driver at that point, which happened in the 70s.
Yeah, and he's bizarre in that. I don't know if Bad Lieutenant came out before.
It had by that time, yeah.
Yeah, he was doing shit. I mean, he was a respected actor, but you're right. He wasn't like a guy that people were calling to like headline a fucking movie or anything, which is crazy because he's a fucking awesome actor, which we all got to
And
see in a couple of years in Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs or whatever.
And one more thing, man, this was Robert Evans produced, just like
Oh,
Chinatown. And at this point, he had underwent major plastic surgery before film began. So he would bring pictures of cats with him to get the look he wanted to the plastic surgeon. So by the time Jack Nicholson and Robert Town saw him, they were horrified by what they saw. And I'm sure that is
Robert,
understandable.
come on over. Oh my God. Hey guys, meow meow. Am I right? Again, that guy,
Man,
didn't they have a show that was like a spoon? Like it was maybe animated that he was the main character of. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I feel like Family Guy might have touched on that.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Either Family Guy or The Critic. I could see either of those. And I remember, was it in Living Color that did a Robert Evans like leather suitcase kind of deal?
Yeah,
I'm
I
getting
think
them
so.
mixed up. Yeah.
But yeah, he's like an infamous character in old school Hollywood. He's like the upper echelon of scumbag producers and shit, you know. Kind of look
But
like Elvis if I remember right.
ooh, the little Elvis that couldn't, man. But also in 1990, the American Wrestling Association holds its final television taping, and I feel that this was probably the biggest pillaging of Vince McMahon. As you can see behind me,
Mean Gene,
Mean
dude.
Gene, he was a former employee of AWA. Hulk Hogan got his start in AWA. Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, got his start there. Scott Hall got his start there. The Midnight Rockers, who would eventually become the Rockers. Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels got their start there. A lot of big names were picked out of AWA. And by this time, August 10th, 1990, they just, hey, they threw the red flag, the white flag, however you want to call it. And Bobby Heenan, he was another one. So
God
he
damn,
took
who was the guy farming the talent for AWA? Because that person or whoever, lady, guy,
Vern,
whoever it was, is a fucking genius.
Vern Gagne. Vern
Vern
Gagne was his
Gagne.
name. Yeah, and they were based out of Minneapolis and Minnesota, and so many names, man. I believe Sergeant Slaughter might have been a part of that. A lot of guys were picked from the '80s.
Damn, what the fuck? Wow, they knew how to farm fucking wrestling talent. That's for sure. That's crazy. Because that's like the fucking part of the Hall of Fame like ballot of WWF, like '90s and '80s WWF. That's crazy.
The guys that's like basically set the foundation, especially when you mentioned the Immortal one, like that was huge. And as the story goes, Vern Gagne commissioned Iron Sheik to break his legs during the match where Hogan won his belt for the first time from Sheik. There's that epic, he picks him up from the camel clutch on his back, and then he throws him off and he gives him the leg drop, and the rest was history. And as they say, man, Vern Gagne commissioned him to like, hey, man, take some liberties on this guy for leaving me. Send a
Really,
message to Vince.
really stomp on his fucking legs for me. That's hilarious. What did Iron Sheik say? I don't fucking Hogan. I don't fuck his legs. Fuck him.
You. Yeah, he didn't do it.
That's dope, man. That's crazy. It's hilarious. Like the sinister, like underbelly of like the wrestling back in the day and shit. I mean, probably even now, but that's funny.
It's like the mafia, bro. Because the NWA.
Legs. That seems like a very Vince McMahon thing to do, honestly, if I'm telling the truth.
He's the most sinister of them all, man. In 1992, August 10th, Blossom is airing season 3, episode 1, Runaway. Runaway Blossom and her beau go to a hotel. Meanwhile, Nick is worried about her running off with Vinny.
Vinny.
Told you, little hussy.
Vinny, played by Ted from Nickelodeon's Hey Dude. Love to see that. But Blossom's on the run, Steve, which is a very unblossom thing to do. She's an intelligent young lady. She's got it all put together, and yet we find ourselves at the beginning of this. She's on the run. Dad's worried. Joey trying to see some tits.
He thinks it's Blossom in the kitchen, but it's really Joey on a midnight binge, just raiding the fridge. And he's like, "Have you seen Blossom?" And Joey's like, "Oh, small girl, intelligent eyes, looks a little bit like Streisand." And when he said, I was like, "Is that a Jewish joke?" It's 92, Joey, so we won't cancel you yet.
Joey's fucking lighting this episode up, though.
It's Joey centric, in a way.
Kind of. And Nick, the dad, Mr. Russo, he's worried. They've had this argument. Blossom's gone, and Joey's like, "Look." He actually says this is like one of the few kind of like intelligent. I guess this happens every once in a while, right? Joey's like, "Look, man, she didn't get dumb overnight. She's smart. We know that. So yeah, she's doing something, but she's in love. She's, so just trust Blossom while you're worried. She's still Blossom. So maybe just chill out, go to bed, sleep on it, and think about it in the morning,
Yeah. Besides, I'm the one you need to worry about. Shit, if I'm not in the house by 3 o'clock in the morning, shit, I'm out fucking. So unless you want to be an early granddad, I'm the one you need to put an APB on.
You need to go get me some condoms, because me and this girl across the street looking at each other with binoculars on and shit, we about to get freaky. So I like to hear that, Steve. Yeah, I like that. That's like the first like phone sex thing. That's like the ultimate phone sex, where you're looking at the person you're phoning sex with. I like that. Joey's like, he's a groundbreaking sexual explorer, I guess. I don't know what we call him.
He's a pioneer of Poontown.
Perfect.
Whoa. We didn't get that at all this episode, but hey. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. And he was saying some inflammatory shit. But we cut to this actual, like, the argument, because we haven't seen it. I thought maybe it was on, like, the last episode of season 2, and that was, like, a cliffhanger. Maybe that's true.
It was.
Okay, so we see this argument, and Dad is yelling at Blossom about Vinny, and I guess he caught him making out. And he's, he doesn't like Vinny. Vinny looks like a thug. Vinny's a scumbag. Why are you making out with this dude? And like as he's like about to tear into her, he sort of like stops and he's like thinking and he's like, you know what? I'm fucking up. Like I actually remember doing like I forgot what it was like to be a teenager. My
I'm
bad.
sorry. I haven't been a teenager in a while.
Yeah.
I guess I forgot how it feels.
And one thing I got to say about this is like this will never happen. He's admitting he's wrong immediately and stopping an argument, being like smart about it, and this would never happen.
No.
So it seems weird, but we cut away from that because it's, you know, it's what you want, right? That's the ideal. But now we cut back to the real world, and Blossom and Vinny, they're in a van, they're on the run. Fucking Vinny's dim as fuck. He doesn't have a plan. He was just gonna roll around. Fucking maybe we'll go up the coast. Here's 8 candy bars and a fucking, you know, a Jolt Cola. Let's fucking drill in the back.
Yeah, we're just gonna head up north and stop at any kind of hotel.
Yeah.
She asked Vinny, "What's the plan?" Freestyle.
Yeah. The plan is chill, right?
Fuck.
But then we cut back to the argument again. And it's like the same argument, but it's different. And in this one, Blossom sort of, in this version, instead of the dad seeing the error of his ways, Blossom sees the error of her ways and is like, my happiness shouldn't affect your happiness. Something to that extent, if I believe I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. So clearly, we're not sure exactly, like, I guess this is them imagining the argument from different sides. And this is like their imagination, you know, like their perspective of what I guess they wanted to happen, maybe. But Blossom, sorry,
both of them seeing the error of their ways. Yeah. And, you know, you could see she's coming to. And she makes a phone call back home. And she's hoping that her dad doesn't answer. Tony answers, the drug addicted big brother, and he plays it off like it's somebody asking for a subscription for a magazine.
Yeah, because his dad's walking around in front of him, so he's like, "I love you. I mean, I love the magazines. They're great."
So, are you guys all stuck in a barn or something, or like I was wondering where these subscriber people, you operators, where do you dwell?
Yeah, and Blossom's like, nah, Tony, just tell Dad I'm alive and that he doesn't need to worry about me. He just needs to trust me. And he's like, that magazine's not going to be popular here in this household. I love that.
Well played.
Yeah, that was a funny joke. This episode's actually, like, as far as Blossoms go, I was laughing a lot of it. But then we cut, and Vinny's got him a room, Steve, at the local hooker hotel, wherever the fuck that's at.
Man, that hotel is nasty as fuck. That shit got rabies and scabies and all kinds of.
It looks like Chilligan's Island with a waterbed in it, Steve.
Yeah, worse. That shit looks stunk. Stunk.
Oh, a hotel with a waterbed in it? Oh, dude. Because you know exactly what's going on in that shit, dude. That's gross.
That's not water.
Yeah, come on, Vinny.
Splooge.
Yeah, so they're in the hotel. Vinny's, you know, this is like the next morning. Like, this is the morning time. So he comes in, they're talking, and Vinny's actually like, in this, we're seeing that he's like a sweetie. He's nice. He just has like this gruff exterior. I don't know exactly all the shenanigans he's got into, but he's not like a thuggish dude. People just are calling him that, and he's being nice to Blossom. And Blossom's like, look, dude, I gotta go home. You're not gonna like it, but I gotta go home. And Vinny handles it, Steve. I guess he even slept in the van, so he didn't even try to like get in on it at night. You know, he didn't try to even throw himself at her.
These 90s shows, when they want to establish a character as a bad person, just put a leather coat on him. Because Vinny really wasn't bad. He just wanted to get with his girl and try to fuck. He wanted to try to, like, let me get you out the house. Let me get you off the porch and see what them panty draws talking about. But and while wearing a leather coat, oh my God, he's a piece of shit. That's all they needed to do. But he's really not bad.
He's a thug.
Yeah. Like, what kind of thug is understanding? Like, a real thug would be like, nah, bitch, you leaving, you going to Big Sur.
I paid the room fucking fee, bitch. And
Yeah,
the
we going
gas.
to Bay Area.
You ain't getting out of here unless. And he's not like that. He's like, I totally
all.
get it. You know, I want you to be happy. So I'm not going home myself because Vinny's running from something. But I'm gonna take you home.
Bad parenting.
Yeah, exactly. He's just a troubled youth, Steve. He's just a troubled youth with a van. And one also thing at some point, I think this is when we cut back. No, I don't know. Maybe I missed it. But at one point, when like they're waiting to hear from Blossom, uh, the dad's like talking to Joey, I think, and Tony. Because is that yet? Did I fuck that up? Because Joey's like, typically the bookworms are the freakiest chicks, Dad. So
Oh, that's early. That's early when it was just Joey and Dad. He was basically saying like, yeah, brainy chicks like Blossom, they eventually get turned out. What? No. What I meant to say was like, no, man, she, you raised a good girl, and she's going to do well in life. She's going to make good decisions.
That's okay. You're right. But I just thought that was funny. He's like, look, Blossom's probably out there sucking 10 dicks right now because usually them bookworm freaks, we all watch Bookworm Bitches, the porno back.
Yeah, all of them used to be nerds. Man.
I love that. So, but Vinny's nice. Blossom, they're gonna go home. So cut back to the house. And now we get a little Six. She's hanging out with Mr. Russo because he's having a panic attack.
I love me some Six.
And they have like this funny conversation where they're like, she's actually like being the adult in the conversation, which is not like Six. And it's just hilarious because they're just talking about stuff. And Six's problem with the whole thing is that she's Blossom's best friend. And she's like, she didn't tell me about any of this shit.
That's my ace. And I don't even know. Like, I gotta get the info from you. You're the dad. I'm supposed to find out before the parents. Like, So she's feeling a certain way, but at the same time, she's there for Nick because she's giving it from a 14-year-old girl's perspective. And it's like, yeah, like it's same thing with my parents. We started off so great, and then around 14, 15, we just start kind of hating each other. It's like, oh.
He lays a rap on her though that if I was like, if I was like some kid and I was with a friend, like a parent's friend, right? He literally take all the other shit out of it. He just sits down. He's like, Six, what's it about fathers and daughters, man? Like, tell me about it. What's it all about? I'd be like, oh God, like what the fuck? Get me out of here. But they have
I
this.
gotta go now.
Yeah, exactly. And he kind of, again, like sees it from the perspective where he's like, damn, like I was like this too, almost like I'm overreacting. So we cut to later and
we're introduced to Rhonda Joe, Tony's hot girlfriend, who at first I thought was Cindy Crawford. She looks like Make-A-Wish Foundation version of Cindy Crawford, but she's still hot, played by Portia Dawson. And she's talking to Joey and Tony about how she was out of control when she was that age. She's totally, and Joey's getting a half boner pud, and she's like, "Yeah, tell me more. Yeah, you were crazy. What kind of stuff?"
Yeah, train. What are you talking about, girl?
You dated the whole football team? Oh yeah, you met this dude named Dante.
Dante, yeah. What you guys do? What you getting up into?
He was the most perfect guy in the world. And then I found a guy who made me forget about Dante, and it's Tony. Like,
yeah. Wait, the addict? Okay, whatever. I guess you guys met in NA or some shit, but
okay.
But Mr. Russo comes in and interrupts fucking Joey about to bust all under the table, and he looks like Ralphie from A Christmas Story with like a fucking big pink bodysuit on, which I love.
Yeah.
And he's got to get ready. There's like an annual children's choir performance that everyone knows about. They keep bringing it up throughout the episode. But he's running it. So he's got to get going. But as that happens, I think Blossom comes back. And he comes in and they start getting into it, which is hilarious when you just visually look at it, because he's like, oh, okay, where were you at, young lady? And he looks like what's behind Steve's head, a big pink nightmare.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's even throwing in some jabs, like, how are you feeling? Kind of feel like Elmer Fudd right now. Because he's a bunny, huh? And he asked her, like, are you in or out? Like, are you just here to do laundry? What's going on? Let me know, because you're still an adolescent. What the fuck? I'm your dad, your carekeeper.
Yeah. And they start getting into it, and she won't apologize. She's like, I'm not going to apologize for what I did, but I do like don't want you to feel bad. Like I don't want you to feel sorry or be worried about me. So for that, I apologize. So she sort of like gives a little bit of an olive branch. But like something else happens, and they just kind of keep going back and forth where they kind of want to keep coming at each other, but eventually they settle into like that. Go ahead.
Well, he hits the line again, like mid rant. He's about to go off on her again, and he's just, I haven't been a teenager in a while. I guess I forgot how it feels.
Yeah, and he basically is like, look, I'm not gonna like say anything. I don't like that dude, but if I make you stop seeing him, you're gonna just run away from me, and I'm gonna just push you away from me forever. So, cool. Basically, and this again, unrealistic. That I've, this would not happen. This guy's coming to his senses.
Yeah, this would have fit well in TGIF because it's very Danny Tanner, man. And he even says, though, I want you to be around him long enough to the point where you realize that he's a piece of shit. She didn't like that. Yeah, I like that too, because like that's, I guess, the best way to handle it in those situations. The teenage daughter is going to rebel. Oh, my dad doesn't like him. I want to fuck him. So it's like, okay. The bad boy with the leather coat. You like him so much, continue kicking it with him. All right. When all your friends, when they got boyfriends with jobs, you can take them out, and he's just out slumming it in a hotel that smells like pee-pee. Okay. Continue doing that and see how far in life you'll go.
You want to get fingered in the back of a van, Blossom? Be my guest. I got to go fucking let these kids sing. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing we skipped over. He has a white van that's very identical to a fucking rapist pedo van. So I can't even make it out. Is that a fucking pedo, or is that Vinny? Or is that a rapist, or is it Vinny? Or is it both? All of the above.
I guess we've gotten to the point where if my daughter's in the back of a rape van, I just have to accept that. So thanks, Vinny. Thanks. And he does throw like, because they make up, right? They get there, and even like he has to throw like one other thing, and she's like, that's what you always do, Dad. Because that's realistic. Because that was my parents to a T, where we'd get to a point where it was just like, we're okay, we're cool, right? And then I'd start walking away, and my dad be like, but you can appreciate how I'm right in this situation. Something like that. We're like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you gotta get that. It becomes a battle of egos. Yeah, I know what you mean, man.
Yeah, dude. So, but families together, they're all going to go to the children's choir thing. And in my opinionation, Steve, this was a great episode, The
sun is going to show.
But I do have to say one thing. I let the show keep playing because I was taking notes. The next week's episode was a banger, Steve, because Blossom's still recounting this, but she's writing like a letter. Is her mom dead?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's like writing a letter or like her diary entry to her mom, but she's telling a story about how she's like catching her up to speed, and they show this hilarious fucking thing where Joey had like a porno tape in his backpack, and it was labeled like as a Steven Seagal tape, and he's rushing out of the house, and their grandfather comes in, sees the tape, puts it in, and just starts eating like snacks and is watching it. And it's one of the funniest things, Steve. It's so fucking funny. Also, in that same episode, Tony relapses. We see a Tony relapse. So in like 5 minutes, I was like, damn, maybe we need to watch Blossom next week too, because it's a fucking banger of an episode.
Man, we just might have to now, man. Grandpa Buzz getting his fucking
dude, I'm telling you, dude. Because what's also very funny and weird is that he sits down in front of the TV, and on their like coffee table, they have this giant bowl of Skittles. So he's sitting there like facing Skittles, like, okay, Oh, and then he's like looking around, like facing Skittles and just watching a porno. It's so funny, dude.
He's twirling his whiskers. Yeah, dirty debutantes. Ooh.
Woo!
And shout out to
Steven
Ted Wise.
Seagal.
Ted Wise, who played Nick, the dad on Blossom. I didn't realize he was from Lakewood, Ohio. Go Ohio. But in 1993, August 10th, American basketball player Andre Drummond is born. He was a Piston, a Cavalier, Laker, 76er, a Net, and now a Bull. Two-time All-Star, four-time rebound leader, all-rookie second team, all-NBA third team, and a ogre of a human being. I see these kids, and I can call them kids because he was born in 93. I was born in 83. And it's like, you're 7 foot, 285 pounds, and I'm 10 years older than you. That just makes me feel like Grandpa Buzz. Time to call AARP now. Yeah, I'm gonna collect my checks.
Yeah, dude, it is wild to watch any sort of athletics at all, like the NFL, and you're like, yeah, go, dude. And that kid's like half my age now. It's like, this is
literally.
Weird.
You could say literally half my age.
Yeah. But you know, shout out to that guy.
Shout out to Andre Drummond and that perfectly lined beard.
Yeah,
man. 1995, the Dodgers leading 2-1 in the ninth. They would forfeit the game to the St. Louis Cardinals because the fans became unruly.
Dodgers fans. I mean, for a while, famously going to a Dodgers game was dangerous in and of itself. I don't think that's definitely not the case now. I think they cleaned it up, but that's hilarious. They pulled a Philly and just got too unruly to control.
They started throwing baseballs into the field because players were getting ejected, and some of the calls at the end of the game, you know, they objected to those too. So that's how they showed their feelings and emotions.
Tommy Lasorda looks pissed.
He's red.
What was his thing? What was his ad? Tommy Lasorda. There you go.
First thing I remember that before I remember, of course, he's a baseball manager and player and shit. It was like, I always remember the Rolaids commercials.
Yeah, I was like, he was the guy for something. I couldn't remember what it was, but hell yeah, dude. Tommy. Love me some Tommy Lasorda.
I love me some Rolaids. In 1996, WCW is airing Hog Wild from the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. Yes, because it's around that time this year, Sturgis, South Dakota. And it actually wasn't bad, man. Despite this whole like gay biker cosplay that Tony Schiavone is rocking, I'm not gonna say shit about Dusty or this man.
What the fuck is Dusty wearing though? Is that like a cut? Did he cut the sleeves off of just a denim shirt, or what are we looking at there?
Basically, yeah. When in Rome, baby. When in Sturgis, baby, I gotta play the part.
I just threw up on myself. Give me a new denim shirt, and I'm just gonna cut them motherfucking sleeves off, baby. But yeah. We said it before, but Bobby the Brain though, he's looking stab you fucking lust there. He needs to be in a Miami Vice episode. He looks baller.
He looks final boss level for sure, man. R.I.P. to both of those gentlemen, man. But yeah, this actual event wasn't bad, man. It had some good matches. It was a barn burner, as JR would say. Chris Benoit versus Dean Malenko. It went past the time limit, and they had 2 overtimes that Chris Benoit eventually won. He came down with the woman and Miss Elizabeth. And, you know, both of those women, I gotta say, are gorgeous. I said this before, Miss Elizabeth in WCW, it just blows the Elizabeth WWF out of the water, man.
I mean, her and the Bischoff thing, she was looking sexy in that shit we watched the other week.
Yes, just full. Them breasts, they look fuller. She picked up them pounds, baby.
I gotta say though, Sunny though, shout out to Sunny because you said that, but Sunny's now after a review, Steve, she's it. She's the goat of all goats.
She can sell sexy, and Ultimo Dragon and Rey Mysterio, they put on a good match. Steiners versus Harlem Heat, brothers versus brothers. Eddie Guerrero versus Ric Flair. Also, Woman and Elizabeth walking down with them. This is the time when they became like the 4 horsemen proteges.
Okay.
So if it was Mongo, they're both going to walk out with them. Flair, Anderson, it didn't matter, man. But the Giant versus Hulk Hogan at the time, or Hollywood Hogan at the time, that was kind of a stinker. You kind of knew what you were going to get. It's the big guy versus the immortal one. And what I don't understand was they're promoting this as a Hulk Hogan thing when clearly at this point he's in NWO. So
Yeah, that is bizarre. Well, like I said, I'm pretty sure that I got this, unless there was another Sturgis one that they did, but pretty sure George Leroy uh, paid them big bucks for me and my buddy to watch this and eat a Bigfoot pizza together. So I don't remember this being good, but it's all a big mush now, Steve. So shout out. But that is weird that they didn't use like the moneymaker Hulk Hogan Hollywood style. They went with this old school fucking. Maybe it's because he had the bike already.
maybe, yeah, they already had the photography, but after he beat the Giant to win the belt, this is the one where he spray paints the belt afterwards. So maybe this is
Nice.
the turning
Maybe
point.
that's. I think maybe that's why I remember it. And that's another thing I forgot NWO was doing back in the day. A lot of spray painting of unconscious people, and I like that
Oh, I love
because
that.
that's
That's so,
disrespectful.
yeah, and if you're a villain, let's get disrespectful as possible.
Hell yeah.
Also in 96, Arliss debuts on HBO. Created by and starring Robert Wool, who was also the showrunner, about the glitzy big money world of professional sports, with Wool playing the eternally optimistic and endlessly resourceful LA sports agent, Arliss Michaels, whose Achilles heel is his inability to say no to clients and employees.
I started off watching this only because when I had limited access to HBO as a kid, this would come on before like something with titties, like a real sex.
Real sex, yeah.
But this was a cool show. We did get to see a lot of athletes acting in it. Like they would have cameos all the time, which I think was probably a big draw of it. But Robert Wool's funny. I mean, he was in fucking he was a big actor, and I mean, he was in Batman, like the first Michael Keaton Batman. And
He was in The Bodyguard as well.
yeah, I mean, he was a big thing, but this, this wasn't for us. We were young kids. I used to watch this. Remember when we had like all the channels in the dorm?
Yeah.
Like this would be on that too. So I'd always catch it. It wasn't, it had some shit. It had some fun stuff, but I don't know. It was kind of boring.
Didn't care for it. And it's like depending on who you ask, man. Some people might say it was a great fictional sports show. Some people think it's one of the worst fictional sports shows. I considered actually covering this, man, because like you said, man, they'd have cameos. They even had wrestlers cameo from time to time, because TNT and WCW and HBO, they're owned by Time Warner. So Eric Bischoff, he made a cameo. Macho Man made a cameo. Maybe one day, I don't know. Arliss, maybe you'll get your day. But in 1999, August 10th, Kool Keith releases Black Elvis, Lost in Space. And we talked about one of his albums before, and I'm a Kool Keith fan at this point, man. Kool Keith, Black Elvis, he's kind of a mix of Andre 3000 and ODB. It's poetic, it's stream of conscious rapping, kind of like a ODB, but it's raunchy from time to time, like a ODB.
I like that. Kool Keith also is a great character in Def Jam Vendetta. I just got to give them a shout out on that. I believe he was in that.
Is that confirmed?
Maybe not, because I have another. I'm speaking out of my ass, but I was just playing it yesterday because I do have it. I've been trying to like get in and like create us and a few of our friends in the game so that if I ever am with everyone, we can all play with the game with each other. But
Brownfield Blaze.
yeah, hell yeah, dude. Shout out. I mean, I'm not a huge Kool Keith fan. I've heard him. He's been on shit. He's been on like soundtracks, and I'm sure I've caught things here and there. But I mean, you're the musical genius. You're the musical aficionado. So I gotta listen to you. I gotta defer to you, dude.
Man, you might enjoy it, man.
You put me
Also
onto a bunch of
99.
shit, so I just gotta say I need to start listening to my friends because I've been on a fucking R&B kick and all this like that we were talking about escape and shit because of you. So I just need to listen to you because once you give me the tips, I fucking catch some new fucking funk that I just never even knew about, Steve.
Won't hurt to try, man. Add it to the playlist. But also in '99, various artists released Violator, the album, which was a compilation album. And I remember this in some of my friends' collections, man, just from the artwork.
Yep.
It reminds me of the New York deli, where if a celebrity shows up, they'll have a crude drawing made of them and put it on the wall. Is it Sardinis or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe it's one of like the delis, like
One of the
but
delis.
yeah, the caricature, the art, dude. I that stick like even if I didn't listen to the album, I think Jordan had it, but
He
yeah,
probably did.
I remember this shit. I just fucking love Busta Rhymes if nobody else. So
It's got, as you said, Busta. It's got LL, Cameron, Lil Wayne, Cormega, Component Noriega, Mace, Mob Deep, 8 Ball, Flipmo Squad, and Q-Tip with the vibrant thing. Vibrant thing, a vibrant thing. Bow, 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 bow. Yeah, man. I added just about everything on here to the playlist.
oh
Um,
yeah.
any callbacks, honorable mentions, takeaways, good sir?
I do have two things. One, just quickly, because I already mentioned it at the beginning of the show. Just shout out to Seth Rogen and whoever created the new Ninja Turtles movie because it's one of the few things where I've been waiting for it to come out and it didn't disappoint me in any way. So I love having that happen. Go see it in the theater so more good movies come out in the theater. But the thing I really want to highlight, Steve, is my dumbness. Because last week, we were talking about a Harrison Ford movie. I think it was called In the Line. I forget what it was called.
Clear and
Uh,
present danger.
Clear and Present Danger. And I mentioned in it that there was another sequel to that movie where John Malkovich, was the villain. That movie does not exist. What I thought that was a Clint Eastwood movie called In the Line of Fire, I believe. And John Malkovich is the villain in that. So the movie I brought up doesn't exist. There is no sequel to the movie as I mentioned it. And
I know.
again, I just make shit up on the fly. Sometimes I get caught slipping. And Steve, I apologize. So and to the general public, into the 90s, I truly apologize. So sorry, sorry to Clint Eastwood because I didn't give your movie shine either. So I'm fucking up.
No, man, it's common. I think we're both guilty of it.
Yeah, but you know, this is no one's surprised that I'm making dumb mistakes, me least of all. But you, Steve, how about you? Any call outs? Any comebacks? Whatever. I don't know.
Well, watching the Larry Sanders Show, I almost came because that episode is called the Mr. Sharon Stone Show, and Sharon Stone, she makes a cameo. She goes on a date with Larry Sanders, and she is looking just so damn
Mm.
fine.
What year was
That's Sharon
this?
Stone, 94 on August 10th.
This was like that sweet spot after Basic Instinct too, where it was just everything was good. Maybe this was like close to a
Everything.
Sliver. Remember Sliver, Steve?
It was right after Sliver.
That was bustable. Damn, Larry Sanders got some of that. Damn.
I wonder if she looks anything like she does in the movies, because I know I don't.
Damn, Rip Torn could have gotten some of that too.
I hope he did. Rip Torn deserves good tail. He deserved it because Rip Torn. I fucked with some Rip Torn.
He probably did.
Let's hope he did. And you know what? I want to call attention to this because it needs to be said. The goddamn Perfect Strangers theme song does not get enough credit. This
Thank
is a
you.
random, like I listened to it because the day we're recording this, it was the finale of Perfect Strangers, and oh my fuck Mary Kill. Like it's
On
like
the
saying
wings of my dreams.
rise and fall, and the fucking the little that's
The wind and wing of a better day. It's like uplifting. It's my life and my dreams, and nothing's gonna stop me now. Bam, 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 bam. I mean, that's like a banger on the level. I've been trying to tell people this. Like, I think we even had like a theme song thing, and one of us named it. But yeah, dude, I'm glad you agree because I've been trying to. I've been shouting that from the fucking towers for years, Steve.
It's like saying a prayer and eating your vitamins every day. And even if it's for a second, acknowledge that Perfect Strangers theme song is a fucking slapper.
Maybe it might
That's
actually, you should probably just wake up, listen to it, because it's like a way to start your day brightly. It's gonna like uplift you and make you like, it's gonna lift you up to bigger and better things, Steve. I love it.
I agree, man. That's my only call to action.
When I
Please
salute
like,
it.
share, subscribe, and comment. Tell your little sister to the sun is gonna surely shine. Check out Food Show Fanatics, B3F podcast, or no, they don't even have a podcast. Check out Don't Worry B Movie with Amanda Wade and our buddy Clark the Shark. And this is Steve G and Maggie with Happened
Happened in the 90s. Oh yeah, bitch.